Okay, so how exactly do you not only make games that bring in an actual full-time salary, but also, and this is the important question, how do you make indie games that are, I don't know, actually good? They get really good reviews on Steam. It's one thing to make money, it's another thing to make games that get good reviews on Steam. My guest for this podcast, his name is Jason Smith. He's the creator of Cultic, which received overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, and is also, I think it's safe to say, it's revered as a cult classic at this point. Jason knows all about not only how to make money full-time as a game developer, but also how to get good reviews. And Jason ultimately followed up Cultic Chapter 1 with Chapter 2, which recently launched to very positive reviews on Steam, but he was very honest with me, the launch was not without its hiccups. So Jason and I discussed this. We also discussed his painful and long journey of years of creating the Cultic universe, design mistakes that he learned during this development process that you as a game developer need to avoid. We also talk about why teaching the player how to play your game is so vital, it's so important, but it's also very expensive. We talk about production mistakes he wished he avoided, AI development, and so much more. And stick around to the end of this podcast because Jason is going to crack open Cultic inside of Unity. And I'll be honest, my mind was blown. So you're building up. And this, I could tell when you were working on Chapter 2, it was almost like you were more passionate about Chapter 2 than Chapter 1. It seemed like you guys went so hardcore with this thing. It's a massive game, and you launched it. So tell me about the launch. Tell me how it went. All the good stuff.
Sure. So yeah, Chapter 2 took a little under 2 years. So it actually took a little less time than Chapter 1, despite the fact that it wound up being almost twice as long. So Chapter 1, like we mentioned, was completely solo. Aside from like QA and whatnot, like I did everything for that one, and it was a lot of learning and a lot of refactoring. And by the end of it, 3D Realms wasn't pressuring me to release it, but I had kind of committed to, I want it out on this day, and I really didn't want to miss that. So I was working bananas hours at the end, like just insane. And there was a lot of burnout, and I didn't want that to happen again for Chapter 2. And so around the time I started working on Chapter 2, like in April of 2024, was the big 3D Realms layoffs. And Nick was formerly the 3D Realms community manager. And him and I, it was funny. So he also lives in Kansas. And we met through 3D Realms. So
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah. Like he lives like just under 2 hours from me. And which in Kansas is a short drive, mind you. That's a very short drive.
Yeah, that's how long it takes to get to the grocery store, right?
Yeah. 2 hours is like, yeah, I'll come see you today. That's fine. But so we met through 3D Realms, which is a Danish company, and we didn't meet in person until Gamescom, which was in Germany. And so it was so fun. And so now Nick and I are great friends now. We're actually going to see him and his wife this weekend. But so he was unfortunately affected by the layoffs. And he had recently released Marrow, which is a fan campaign for Blood, the Monolith build engine shooter. And I remember playing through Marrow and kind of being like I think Nick gets it. So when I was playing it, I just immediately got this sense that Nick really understood Cultic's level design, because, and this is something that build engine games in general were quite good at, but there's a lot, it's just a lot of realistic feeling spaces, Nick was really good at building lived in, realistically scaled areas, and that's a big hallmark of Cultic's map design, is that it mostly takes place in real spaces, not big Quake cathedrals, not big brutalist hellscapes. It's just all normal places.
Normal places are hard to do, man. With Twisted Tower, with me and Felipe, it was so hard. You said the correct word, which is they're properly scaled. It feels like it's a real place. It's so hard to do it, and every little area requires the precise kind of set dressing to make it feel like it actually has a purpose. And it's so hard to do. Anyway, keep going.
What's even cooler than Nick's designs being right up my alley was that he's so damn efficient at it. He'll literally, I'm sitting there struggling to make these relatively small maps for chapter 1, because map blockouts, I'm not good at them. My brain is always focused on like the final result. So I want to know, like when I start building a map, I'm already doing like final set dressing from the get-go, because I
Yep.
just want to know what it's going to look like at the end. Whereas Nick will just like sit down in the build editor and just like go nuts. And in like, in an hour, he's got like this really impressive looking blockout. And
Yeah.
that stuff takes me forever to do. So I was like, I mean, him and I were already pretty good friends by then. And I was like, since he had just gotten laid off, I was like, do you want to help me with chapter 2?
Yeah.
And we just, we get along super well. And working together is great because there's, so the first map I had him work on was the mall, because I was like laying out the mall, like its layout, like where the store is going to go. How do you get from here to here? There were set pieces that I knew I wanted there, but how to connect them all, I was just kind of spinning my tires. And so I had him start working on a layout for that while I was kind of polishing up the first map still. And yeah, and he just gets it. Like he's really good at just like creating blockouts, kind of like gray box. Well, it's orange boxing for us because my default texture he was using is orange, but
Oh gosh.
but yeah, so it's gray boxing, and then just having someone to bounce ideas off of. So like he can show me this, and he's like, yeah, well, I thought the player would start here and then kind of go here, and you pick this up, and then I can be like, oh, what if when they walk into this room, like they see this, and it's oh yeah, and so it was so nice bouncing off of each other, which of course is probably typical of any team
Exactly.
working on a game project. But it's my experience with that is more so the horror stories of publishers kind of like taking the reins and making a lot of those executive decisions, which I don't want to happen. So anyway, so we worked on chapter 2, and because I had Nick on board and he is so good at just like getting maps off the ground, we just, like Old Town, for example, which is the 6th map in chapter 2, was originally the 3rd map. And then like we started working on this 3rd map, which is going to be Old Town, and it was going to be kind of like this like sunken old like swamp town. And I was like, well, I want to have like a little prelude to it, so you don't just walk directly into Swamp Town. Like, I want something before it, and all of the before it, it was like, oh, well, what if we had like this little like area outside of the mall, like this parking lot, and blah blah blah, and then that turned into this huge boss fight, and then that turned into all this stuff that I was like, okay, well, this is already 20 minutes of gameplay, so maybe this should be its own map. And then we were like, oh, well, it would be cool if like leading into Old Town, you had to like come through like this little farmstead, and it had like a little slaughterhouse, and then the slaughterhouse got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was its own map. And then so it wound up being map 6, because it's just like, when I'm not just spinning my tires being frustrated on level design, getting a map off the ground, it's so much easier to just like iterate on stuff. And so chapter 2 wound up being almost 8 hours long.
Golly, Jason.
And that's without really like any filler, that's without like, well, some people might argue that some of the maps are big enough to be filler, but just like physically large enough. But so it just wound up being huge. And it was originally going to be 10 maps, and then it wound up getting up to 13, and then we combined 2 of them, so it was back down to 12.
How many like biomes are there? Like themed areas?
Quite a few. So one of the biggest complaints with chapter 1 was map variety, which I never really agreed with, because it's like each map is a completely different area, but they are all connected by generally like rural woodsy areas. But people still like didn't think they were varied enough. Not the majority of players, but of those that had complaints, that was probably the biggest one. So we, so chapter 2, I would say almost every map is about as unique as you can get without going like Mario 64, like Ice World, Lava World, stuff like that. So you go from like a map 1 is all these urban environments crawling through like blown up buildings and stuff like that, and then map 2 is a shopping mall, and map 3 is a swamp, and map 4 is this big industrial slaughterhouse, and map 5 is this old rural farm setting, and then and it just kind of keeps on going like that. So the variety was a lot greater this time around, which meant a lot more art assets had to be created.
Were you creating those, or was that Nick?
So basically the division of labor was, when I had an idea for a map, or if we kind of spoke together and brainstormed an idea for a map, I would set him loose on laying it out. kind of just getting like the gray box put together. And then whenever he felt like he was at a good stopping point with it, he would send it to me. I would kind of walk through it. We would brainstorm ways to add more gameplay. Like maybe the first draft he sent me only takes like 20 minutes to run through. So it's like, okay, this layout is great. These set pieces are great, but it's really short. So like we brainstorm like, well, what if we, add something here, add something there? And then it just kind of goes back and forth like that until we feel like the design is good, the scale is good, the set pieces are good, and then he would hand it back to me and I would do all of the texturing and create all of the assets and set up all the encounters while he moved on to the next map to lay out. And so it wound up being like kind of half and half in terms of which maps I designed and which ones he designed, and some of them we both worked on them. Like the fairgrounds is probably the best example of that, and probably the one where you can feel our different design styles a lot, because the probably the most criticized part of the game is the first half of Fairgrounds, which is a big, open, sprawling Renaissance fair, like a Christmas themed Renaissance fair that of course is taken over by the cult. And that's like a completely wide open, like you've got 4 objectives you need to tackle and you can just kind of do them in whatever order. And then at the end of that map, the second half, you go into like this big, like touristy castle that is a much tighter, more labyrinthian, classic style area, and that Nick laid out.
Is this it right here?
Yeah. So this is all, and so you can really feel like the difference between our map styles, because I do much more like open-ended stuff, like in Blender. I do a lot of mine in Blender, and then Nick works more with brushes, doing more like classic CSG level design.
Yeah.
And that worked out really well. So it was really nice getting to, and I learned a lot from him, just looking at the way he does things and the way that he designs like maps that can loop back on themselves. And it was really great getting to work with him on that.
So anyway, let's talk about launch here, dude. Like, how did Chapter 2's launch go for you?
Leading up to launch, I mean, things looked really, really, really good. Wishlist numbers were strong, but of course, I didn't really know. You never really know what to expect, regardless of wishlist numbers, but even more so when you're launching a DLC, which I've never done before. So this isn't like, instead of this being a completely separate game, a lot of the improvements that came with Chapter 2, like expansions to the color palette, completely scrapping and redoing the enemy pathfinding.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you retroactively update Chapter 1?
Right. So that was kind of the deal, was like all of these improvements are things that would objectively help Chapter 1 as well. Like there were a ton of optimizations and like a brand new menu system that was a lot more like horizontal real estate friendly, so that like localization would actually be possible. And all of that was stuff that I wanted to be in Chapter 1 as well. And so I decided I wanted it to be, an expansion to Chapter 1 still, rather than a completely separate application where all of any changes I make would have to be ported to a second Unity project and then and then built and then uploaded to Steam. And so it was like wishlist numbers were strong for Chapter 1. Like I think I was sitting at maybe 210,000 at the time that Chapter 2 launched. And by comparison, I think Chapter 1 launched with like 70,000. So we're looking at like 3 times the wish lists. But of course, a lot of these are people who have had the game wish listed for like 2-3 years at this point.
Well, the Chris Sikowski's theory is, I don't know if you know Chris Sikowski, but Chris Sikowski he's a indie marketer, and he claims that that wish lists don't get cold, which I don't know how that makes any sense at all. But that he's like a data guy, and he looked at the data, and he was like, they get cold maybe after a month, but barely, and then after that it flatlines. Yeah. In terms of the conversion rate of a wish list, that's what I mean by getting cold,
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if sitting on having a wish list for Chapter 2 for 2 years, I don't know if that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, like the importance of, I mean, like or I guess rather the usefulness of a wish list, in that you basically have captured data of being able to reach out to those people. Because I mean, like if you put the game on sale for 20% or more, anybody who has it wish listed gets a notification about it and an email, depending on I don't know what the limits on that are, but and so it's like, I would agree that like every time I've put Cultic on sale, it always results in about the same amount of units. And so yeah, like you said, that data seems to almost always be useful. But then like Chapter 2's store page finally went live like 2 weeks before it launched, and it racked up maybe 20,000 wish lists before launch. And so it's kind of like, like I wonder which of these numbers is going to be more, because you imagine a lot of people probably don't need to wish list it, because if they're a big enough like fan or community member for the first game, they probably just know when it's coming out. Maybe they don't need that reminder, or they're probably waiting on a sale, and like chapter 2 didn't launch with a discount, and so like I'm sure a lot of those folks are, which is fine, I get that. And so you're looking at this 210,000 number, and kind of wondering like, well, I wonder what they're waiting for on that. And is it a discount? Is it the folks that were waiting for chapter 2 to come out so they would have the full experience?
Sure.
And so you're kind of going into launch wondering like which of those numbers is going to ring more true.
Well, that's definitely a con. Speaking of like pros and cons, the con of a DLC is that you don't really know. Are these wish lists for chapter 2 or are they for chapter 1?
The 210,000 figure is for chapter 1. I think chapter 2 got to around 20,000 before launch, but I only had the store page up for about 2 weeks.
See, that's the problem. It's like, how do you know the value of a wish list related to a DLC, right? And so that's one of the cons of doing the DLC. Did you ever have like a back and forth with 3D Realms or with Nick about like, maybe we need to do Cultic 2?
Not recently, and not ever as a maybe we need to course correct. I think it was, the last time we probably even discussed it with 3D Realms would have been probably before chapter 1 came out, and that was like what if there was going to be a chapter 2 at all, which until the month that chapter 1 launched, I had no idea, because it was like that's why chapter 1 was a short, cheap game with kind of like a cliffhanger-y ending, but otherwise it was content complete. Like all the weapons were there, all the enemies were there, it was polished, it had a start, middle, and end. And then it was like, if the game sucks, if it flops, then I won't be able to afford to do game dev anymore. And so I didn't want to be on the hook for a bunch more, a bunch more content. But then, around like October, right before chapter 1 launched, the wishlist numbers were pretty strong. And so around that time is when I think we committed, like, okay, no, we'll do, like, I'll do a follow-up. I don't know how big it'll be, but I'll do a second chapter, and it'll just be a DLC. Because I didn't want to like reinvent the whole game. Like, I wasn't gonna like make it 3D. I wasn't gonna dramatically change the art style.
What do you mean
3D? Like full 3D meshes.
Oh, 3D models,
yeah. Which if it had gone that direction, then it would have been a sequel, like a separate game entirely. But
where the heck is chapter 2 on the page, dude?
In that tiny little content for this game window, right there, right below your cursor.
This?
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
What? Is there a better way to do this? Can you do it like right here? Like if you're a big fat image here?
If you're a cool bigger developer publisher who Steam will do custom packages for you, I think you can get flags for it. And I'm sure, and so that's kind of why there's the complete edition bundle is there, because that's a bigger there's more than one way to buy this.
I wonder, you see, this is where like you and I are different, because I'm thinking about the marketing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you could do a big old fat GIF here that says chapter 2 available now. Like you're doing here. Of course, that's a little grubby, isn't it? But
yeah,
I don't know.
I think part of that, because there was also the discussion of like, do we leave chapter 1 as a $10 purchase and have chapter 2 as a DLC? So yeah, to your question of whether there was ever much talk of making it a separate application, not really. The bigger conversation was, what format do we launch the DLC in? And one of the big questions on that was, do we leave Cultic chapter 1 as a $10 purchase and have chapter 2 as a completely separate thing? Do you increase the base price of the game to $20 and then just pack chapter 2 in? Do you add chapter 2 as a DLC, but you remove the ability to buy just chapter 1? And like, I think one of the strengths of Cultic has always been that it is a very accessible, inexpensive game to get into. So like, even if you don't want to play chapter 2 and you just pick up chapter 1, it's not like Resident Evil Revelations chapter 1, where it's like you're only getting a sixth of the game. You're only getting like 2 hours of gameplay, and then like next time on Resident Evil Revelations kind of deal. It's still
$20.
it's still a full experience. And so like you can buy chapter 1 for $10, $8 on sale, whatever.
Yeah.
You can play it, and then if you're satisfied with what you got out of the game, then like there's not really a whole lot of need to continue playing it. Like it's kind of like I don't have a lot of time for playing games, and so like a 6-hour game I can beat in like 2 sittings is a lot more appealing to me than a 20-hour one that I'll probably drop at some point. And so that was kind of the thought of just like leaving it as a separate deal. That like
I think you kind of had to, man. Like looking at the way you presented chapter 1, it's basically saying the next game that comes out has to be chapter 2. It cannot be Cultic 2. Because then people are going to say, what the heck?
Yeah.
And the so format, you kind of set yourself up for that, which I don't think is a mistake. I don't know. But you did set yourself up for that just with this language right here. You kind of you're basically promising chapter 2. So,
and it was very tricky the whole time, because like Steam doesn't really support episodic releases. And this has been, and we can shift into this topic now if you want, of just of just the launch model, because it has been something that has confused a lot of people, and has kind of, which is fine. Like that, doing an episodic release isn't really normal. And like the boomer shooter scene, that just kind of this genre that is around Cultic, a lot of them did the model of launching at $20 or $25 with one episode out, and then anybody who buys it gets all the new ones for free. But like I mentioned before, I didn't really want to go that direction, because if chapter 1 didn't sell well enough for me to continue paying my bills, then I wouldn't have been able to keep working on it. I would have had to go back to my old job or some other kind of full-time gig. And so I didn't really want to commit to that. But it's tough because Steam doesn't really support episodic releases. They don't really have any method for it aside from just base game plus DLC, which you can do. It's just the messaging on it is tough. And
well, also DLC is I don't know if it's a universally accepted definition, because sometimes a DLC is just junk. Sometimes it's little add-ons, and then other times it's like, for you, that's why I love you so much. I really do, man. I love how pure and unadulterated your business model is. So we basically got an 8-hour game that's $10, right? And then we've also got Cultic chapter 1, which is how many hours?
Like 3 to 5, depending on how you play it.
Let's just say 4.
Okay.
And that's a $10 game. So we've got what, 8 plus 4, a 12-hour handcrafted game that's just rock solid gameplay, story, and visuals. Essentially, it's $20. That's amazing. Like, that is such a steal. That is such a rock solid steal. Whereas the stealing goes in the opposite direction lately for AA, AAA, and also some indies, where it's like $20 for like nothing, which makes me wonder why people for chapter 2 aren't giving it 97% like chapter 1 got. They're getting a bang for their buck. I'm confused.
So there's a few reasons for it. So the biggest one, and this actually affected chapter 1's score more than chapter 2's, was when chapter 2 launched, there was a very small minority of folks who had been under the impression this entire time that chapter 2 would be free, which I have never said. Like when chapter 1 launched way back in 2022, the store page and the FAQ on the board both said that chapter 2 would be a paid DLC. Every time I have ever talked about it, I have said it would be paid. Like every time I've ever answered that question on Steam, on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever, I've always said it would be paid. And I get it. Like some people aren't super tuned into that stuff. They probably don't follow me. They don't, that's fine. And so I understand being out of the loop on it, or being surprised, like, oh, I thought this was going to be free. But some people got really mad about it. And so there was like a little like mini review bomb of chapter 1 when chapter 2 came out, of people being like, oh, the dev's a liar, greedy, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I can't stop you from feeling that way, but
did you feel bad? Did they,
no,
if I ever get accused of something on like Reddit, I still feel guilty, even though I know I'm not wrong. Did you feel
No.
guilt or upset by
No.
that?
Well, upset, yes. Like it's definitely like a really insulting thing to say. Like because tell you what, like you go download Unity, you spend 2 years of your life making an 8 hour long game, you give it to me for free, and I'll give you chapter 2 for free. Like I feel that seems like a fair trade. Like I said, I get
I
the
know, man. I
confusion.
know. I
It's like
get it. I get it too. But for me, it's like, okay, it's kind of like Twitter, where it's like, you wouldn't talk to someone on Twitter the way you do on Twitter if you were in real life.
right.
Like if I saw a random person on the street and they had an opinion, I wouldn't just berate them publicly. I would just keep my mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
I know you personally, and I know you have integrity, and I know how hard you work and how much you care about your games. Like seriously, I'm not like blowing smoke up your butt. I'm serious. I know you very well. And when I see the care you put into chapter 2, and then people are saying it should be free, that's like mind blowing to me. Because in real life, if they met you at like Gamescom or something at a booth, they'd go, "Yeah, I get it. I understand why you're charging for chapter 2. You're working 2
Mm-hmm.
years of your life. You have a team of 2 full-time workers. This is your livelihood. Of course, it's going to be $10."
Yeah.
Now, if someone was playing chapter 1 and let's say they played for 20 minutes, they don't know what they got. They don't know that they got a 4-hour game for $10. So maybe they thought that chapter 1 was 30 minutes long or an hour
Mm-hmm.
long just by the naming of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they jumped into chapter 2 thinking, well, the first one wasn't very long and now this one he's charging for. When in reality, what they're getting is they're getting, what was it, a 12-hour game
Mm-hmm.
for $20, which is incredible, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like like I said, the confusion is understandable because the release model is weird. When you're a solo dev, basically working through your own savings, you have to make some decisions on release models because like I can't work on Cultic for 4 years and then release it. Like I have to release something sooner than that, or I'm
That's right.
going to not have
And you can't
electricity
do
any
early
longer.
access. That's right. And you can't do early access because it's a linear first-person shooter.
Right. Well, and a lot of people, there was a lot, and this has been going on since chapter 1 launched, but some of those review bombs were like, I can't believe this early access game is charging for the second chapter. But it's like it's never been in early access. Like you can go look at the page right now. There's no early access banner. You can look at reviews from day one. They don't have the early access badge. And like there's this big misunderstanding, I think, of like what early access is, which again is also understandable because early access is used in ways it shouldn't be a lot of the
Of course.
time, and there's not a lot of moderation for that. But like you can go to the public Steamworks page about early access and you can read about it, and it is very clear what it's designed for. And it's designed for games that are planning to launch in a beta or alpha state, incomplete, and that have content roadmaps that intend to kind of develop along with the community and build the game with players kind of getting into it on the ground floor. And
Right.
Cultic Chapter 1 wasn't that. It was a complete game that had all content there, and it was polished and like it was ready to go. And it was just going to have more content in the future, which is not uncommon. Like, I mean, literally, like just last year, like Shadow of the Erd Tree came out, or was that this year? Time has no meaning. Shadow of the Erd Tree came out within the last year as a DLC expansion for Elden Ring, and it's basically a brand new game. It's an entire game worth of content, but like nobody had a problem with that because it's just like this is the same thing. It's just a content expansion.
Yeah.
And like I said again, I'll reiterate. I get the confusion. The boomer shooter community has so many different release models because you're working with indies. We don't have the luxury a lot of times of getting to work on a game for 5 years until all the content we ever want is ready to go. And so like I get the confusion, but what I won't entertain is this idea that like I was lying to everybody, because it's like I have been very public with this information, and some people were very understanding of that. When I would be like, no, like here's a laundry list of URLs where I was like, yep, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that, okay, and that was the end of it. But yeah, some people were really really mad about it, and it's like it's $10, like it'll be okay. So yeah, so the first part of it was like some people like bought chapter 2, played 5 minutes of it to get to the minimum threshold to leave a negative review being mad about the price and then refunding it. So that was part of it. And the other two parts were more tangible. So the other two big complaints were navigation and map size. Like chapter 1's maps are, for the most part, like 20-minute affairs, relatively short and pretty linear. Like, there might be some encounters where you can go left or right, get low ground, high ground on this fight, but otherwise, like, it's all like A to B, A to B. And so for folks that were coming to Cultic from the retro shooter, boomer shooter genre, from Dusk, from Blood, from Duke Nukem, etc., that is what they were there for. Like, that was the experience that they wanted. And so chapter 2's shift to these larger levels was off-putting to some people, and so that was out the gate was an issue that folks had. And some of that's just going to be like a taste thing, and there's not really much I can do about it. But part of that problem is like navigation and like getting lost, and not just getting lost in like a signposting way of like, I have no idea where to go next, but when the map is long enough that it takes you 40 minutes to an hour to beat, some of it's just like, what have I already done? What was I doing? Like, just remembering where you were going, or like what items you had picked up. And that I understood, which is what you're looking at here. I immediately started working on an auto map, which people asked for a little bit here and there at chapter 1, because chapter 1, some of the maps, while being relatively linear, could be a little bit labyrinthian, like especially like the crypts, the catacombs area. But I never really thought chapter 1 needed it. Plus, auto maps kind of scared me because they're a lot of work. When you're doing something like that, it's a lot of manually mapping stuff out, and I didn't really want to do that. And I didn't think it would be an issue with chapter 2. Obviously, I can't be the one to tell that, because Nick and I designed the maps, so we know them. But like, QA didn't really have any trouble, which was about 8 people, so it's it's a small sample size for sure. And
that's wild, Jason. Look at this.
Yeah, it's nuts.
What's crazy is that in your brain, every corner of this map, right? And you even when you try and assume, like, you try and convince yourself, because I'm going through this right now, where you're trying to convince yourself, okay, players will not have my level of understanding of this map.
Right.
You're always underestimating how dumb the player is. It's just the way it is. And the reason why is because they don't know that this is blank space over here.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know this is blank space. So all these empty areas in your mind, you're like, okay, I know those are blank. But they see, like, let's say a blocked off door or something, I don't know. Or like maybe it looks like maybe something they could get to, like a rooftop. In their head, they're going to sort of mark this abstractly as like a maybe. This is a maybe location that they can get to. I guess my point is that players have no clue how expansive or how small a map is. So they're going to assume everything is everything.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, and like QA, there were maps that QA did have trouble with, like the swamp, for example, the third map. And that map used to be, like, the swamp segment used to be just like massively wide open. So now it has these big like these big clusters of tree. They're basically like 2D walls of trees that you can't walk past. And those are used to kind of break the map up and delete a whole bunch of negative space that had nothing going on. And then it used to be like, you got to the swamp and it was like, okay, have fun. Like, you can go do whatever. But there's certain areas that are completely blocked off until you go do one particular thing. And so the QA were, they were like just running off and looking at all of this stuff they're not able to access and trying to figure out how to like jump over things. And so like there were changes made there to really streamline that. But in terms of like just like getting lost and not knowing where to go, I think it was a combination of like, some folks are just directionally, they just have better like memory and spatial reasoning. And some folks do get lost, but they enjoy the exploration. So it's not frustrating the second they get lost.
Yeah. But I love getting lost. It's one of my favorite parts of games. I love getting lost.
And I'm the same way. But some people aren't. And so once you get beyond your QA pool, it started to become obvious really quickly that, what I saw as maybe players will go the wrong direction and get lost, but they'll find their way pretty soon, because it's not, there's not that many ways to go. But there are players who the first time they hit that wall of like, oh, I'm not sure where to go next, they just get super frustrated. And a lot of that was leading to Alt F4 negative review uninstall, which, like, exploring is part of Cultic, but it's not supposed to be the difficult part. You know, like getting lost, finding your way isn't meant to be difficult. So I was just like, okay, well, you know what? I can do an auto map. I had an idea to basically like barf the game's nav mesh out into Blender, and because that's what you want to represent.
That's what you did. This is amazing.
All you care about are the places the player can walk. And so just like I barfed the nav mesh data out, and it wasn't too much work to clean it up, to get rid of like, n-gons and stray vertices and whatnot. And then, I messed around with a little bit of vertex painting to paint like where you have and haven't walked. And I was like, I think in like a couple of weeks, I could have this entire thing done. And that should clear up this problem. Like, yes, the maps are still large, and the people who don't like the larger maps still aren't going to like them. But the people who want to like the larger maps, but are just lost, this will be a huge help. And so, I spent a couple of weeks putting that together. And so that was the second big item.
Is that done, Jason?
It is out on the beta branch right now, gathering feedback. Okay. And then once I'm done with this bone rooms thing I'm working on, I'm going to go back and try to get it out on the main branch.
Of course, nothing's ever really done with you. You're always going to be cleaning up the map. This is going to look totally different in a year. It's going to be like gorgeous.
Probably.
What's funny is dude, you're so smart, because last week I sent you a screenshot of the map system I was working on for Twisted Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing you said was, "Is this necessary? Like, do you need this?" And I was like, "Oh, Jason."
Well, I haven't played Twisted Tower since the demo, so like that's my only experience of it.
I know, but your suspicions are probably correct, because I beta tested this week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, last week, and everyone didn't even use it.
Really?
There was what they wanted.
It was Flashlight 2.0.
That's right. That's right. And we got rid of the flashlight. I've gotten rid of pretty much everything in that game and redone it all. But what I found, and I'm curious if this is helpful for you, what players need is a reminder. Okay, for me, I'll speak for me. What they need is a reminder of what they're doing. So and I often wonder about BioShock, because with BioShock, and the reason I bring up BioShock is Twisted Tower is very similar to BioShock. Mm-hmm. With BioShock, you've got that little arrow at the top of your screen at all times.
Right.
It's like, go here. And I often wonder, why not instead have a little button where you press H or M or something, and it just flashes on the screen, like generally what you're supposed to do. Like generally, like find the battery pack in the mansion. Go to the casino to find the key. So I'm curious about, with you, is it that they're getting lost in the map, or they're getting confused as to what to do?
Mostly the latter, and I think mostly. I don't want to speak for everybody. Yeah. I think it's mostly the latter. Like, the maps are large, like especially like Swamp. It's very easy to get turned around, and so the map, just by virtue of marking where you have and haven't been, is a big help with that. But I think it's almost more of just like remembering what you have done and what you still need to do when the map is 40 minutes to an hour long, which again, that's something that's really, I can't really gauge that when I'm working on the game, because like I know where everything is. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Yep. And QA didn't really struggle with it. Again, small sample size. So clearly that wasn't a good indicator. And so I was like, it should be fine. And then, all these negative reviews start rolling in of people just being like, I have no idea where to go. I don't remember what I'm doing. I don't remember where this key goes. And it's like, okay, I'll add a map. Like, that's not a big deal. And the biggest thing with the map was showing where you haven't been. So at a glance, you can be like, oh, I still need to go explore over there. That's a place I haven't been yet. And B, whenever you jiggle a door handle that's locked, it makes a little marker on the map for it, so that when you get a key, it's like, where do I put this? What hole do I put this in?
Well, that might be a problem, though. Devil's advocate here. What if they don't jiggle the handle? What if they just see it?
Well, then they should still have a nice dark blob around that door where they haven't explored yet.
What if they just walk towards it and they know it's locked? Is there an indication that it's locked?
Not until you mess with it. Like, it just gives you a check prompt either way.
Yeah.
But that's actually an interesting point. So and this was kind of because there was definitely like a discussion internally about, do I go straight for an auto map, or do I try to adjust like signposting more? Like, do you lean more towards yellow paint, And so there is a lot of signposting in the game already. Like, the map that people struggle the most with, Fairgrounds, has literal signposting of like actual signs and maps pointing around. And some of the folks that I talked to that were really upset with that map, some of them didn't even realize those were there. And so it's like, I don't want to lean so heavily into yellow paint that it destroys kind of the immersion and the atmosphere, especially because there's still going to be folks who just don't notice them. Like it's easy to just miss something,
Yeah.
and like it doesn't matter if I put a sign that says, "Hey, go this way," because if you as a player are looking at something else, or there's just a lot going on, or you happen to kite a bunch of cultists from a different fight over to where that sign is, so you're distracted when the sign shows up and you just don't see it, then you're in the same boat. And so, an example of that in the penultimate map, the bunker, there's a big fight in a big like cult chapel, and after that fight, you get a key, and on your way into that area, there's this locked door, and it's like a big iron bar door, and behind it is a big spiral staircase that descends downward out of sight, and that door is locked. And you get the key for that door right after this big chapel fight. And there were not a ton, but a surprising number of players that completely missed that door. Even though like you walk right by it. When you're in the room, there's a locked door, there's a locked set of double doors in front of you, and then there is that door. And the double doors open when you approach them, which kind of like kicks off the fight. And then when you're leaving, you have to walk by that locked door again. And, it's got like torches around it. It's like a big iron thing. You can see through the bars. You can see there's a staircase down, and like players were just like they just didn't see it, and so they would leave that area and then go wander around the bunker for an hour, wondering where the heck to go.
Yeah.
And that just I never thought that would be a problem. It's just because like in my mind as the level designer, it's like no, it's like this big locked gate. Like you would immediately see it and click on it, and so stuff like that. I don't really know. Like I could signpost it more with like there could be a bunch of big flashing items right behind the gate to remind you to go there, or you could put a whole bunch of like signage around it, or some kind of environmental cues like a big like blood splatter that smears under the door. But you're kind of just maybe that will help 5 of those players see it, but you're still going to have these other players that are wanting to go back and check out something else, or they've got a different backtracking secret they want to go get. And at that point, it's like, okay, that's when the map is going to be so, because the bunker is huge. It is a massive, massive map. And so having an auto map where you can just pull it up and you just look for that dark blue splotch, it's like, oh crap, I never went in there. And then that made way more sense to me than trying to guess at what signposting was going to help people.
Well, it's almost like when you venture into a new genre, or you get a little too close to a new genre, you kind of have to start bringing in the mechanics of that new genre just by necessity. It sounds like you're touching Metroidvanias a little bit, a tiny bit, which this, by the way, this looks so good, Jason. Oh, I love this.
The bunker was a fun area. This is the bunker, part of the bunker here.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm not spoiling anything here, but dude, this looks so good. Yeah, so like you ventured into that new genre, and this I think we talked about this either in one of our meetings or in a previous podcast, where you were basically like, it's not just adding a map. There's so much more to adding a map, or it's not as simple as make the map bigger. The moment you make a map bigger, all of a sudden you're introducing a new genre, and you got to teach new stuff. You got to create a map. You got to create all these different call outs and new mechanics and UI elements just to make the new map manageable for the player. So like the feature creep is a real problem when not necessarily it's creating the feature itself. It's all of the scaffolding that supports that feature.
For sure.
Makes it something that the player can actually experience and enjoy.
Yeah. So that's probably the third big contributor to like chapter 2's less positive reception was just that chapter 1 had the like mainstays of like survival horror. Like there was like this ammo economy there was a focus on like resource management, there was a focus on horror, but all of those things were kind of dialed back because I wasn't really confident enough in pushing the game too far in that direction, because the majority of Cultic's like fan base at the time was from the retro shooter scene, because just because of like whether it's folks who came there from Blood or because they're 3D Realms fans. Like there was a big expectation that Cultic would be a boomer shooter at its core, and so I tried to really play lightly with those elements. So like the horror segments were pretty well spaced out, pretty short and pretty mild. The ammo economy stuff was kind of more of like a skill expression thing, where like you can have a crazy amount of ammo if you use these tools, but if you choose to ignore them entirely, you'll just probably be low on ammo a lot, but you'll still be able to make it through.
Yeah.
And chapter 2, like chapter 1 obviously got great reception, like way better than I was expecting. And that's because, and it was very largely accessible. So people who came to chapter 1 from survival horror games or from horror games in general found something that they could appreciate. Folks who came there from the indie scene in general found something they could click with. Folks who came there from the boomer shooter scene found something they could click with. But the longer standing like cultic community has really clicked with the horror elements and really clicked with like the larger of the maps, like asylum grounds and the ones that let you explore more. The parts of the cultic community that are most active and have stuck around the most were really digging those parts of the game, the parts of the game that I had chosen to kind of like to hold off on. And so with chapter 2 I really wanted to lean into them more. And so chapter 2 has like bigger, more open-ended maps that encourage more exploration.
Mhm.
There's a bigger lean on the ammo economy, where you have enemies that you can kill them whatever way you want, but there's definitely much more efficient ways to do it that don't involve wasting tons of ammo on them. And then the horror segments, there's a lot more horror, and it's still not like Five Nights at Freddy's jump scare territory, but it is definitely, there's a lot more horror segments.
Is it more like tonal horror or?
Yeah, it's a lot of it's just like tense atmosphere that honestly a lot of times, spoiler alert, doesn't build up to anything because I'm not a jump scare guy.
Yeah.
I don't like them myself, so I don't put them in the games. But what I found out was, while a lot of people loved chapter 2, like chapter 2, what last I checked is sitting at like 85% positive, which I obviously not as great as 97, but I'm happy with that. Like that's awesome. But what I found was that there was a chunk of Cultic's fan base that was only there for the boomer shooter part of it, like the kind of run and gun bunny hop, which is a viable play style in the game. Like you can absolutely play it that way. And chapter 1 is easier than chapter 2 and is more generous with ammo because it's the earlier part of the game. And so you could run and gun, kind of ignore a lot of headshots, kind of ignore a lot of the ammo economy, and you'd still be able to squeak by. And chapter 2 it's harder, and it leans more into the ammo economy. And so if you just run around holding down left mouse and like spraying the shotgun at distant enemies, ammo will dry up a lot faster. And there was room for balancing on that for sure. Like there were definitely areas where ammo was too dry. And so I have, in the weeks after the game came out, kind of piecemeal drip feeding ammo into areas where players have been able to identify reliably, like, after this boss fight, I was just completely tapped out, and I as the developer didn't do a good job of restocking them. And so stuff like that's a no-brainer. Like that's no problem. But there's also I really felt like I had to be delicate with that, because while there is a minority of players, maybe like 7 to 10% of the players who absolutely refuse to engage with the ammo economy or in the resource management, there's the remaining players, especially those, like the cultic community at large, really digs the lean into survival horror. Like they had a blast with it. They loved learning all about like these ways that you can save ammo and these little idiosyncrasies and these synergies between different weapons and different enemy types. And I don't want to trivialize the game for those people and ruin that aspect of it in service of dumping ammo into the game. And so unfortunately it kind of meant, like, I think that like this maybe 10% of negative reviews I'm just going to have to be okay with, because like their point of like, I loved what chapter 1 did, I hate what chapter 2 does, is valid. Like if you hate survival horror and you hate exploration and you hate ammo, like, resource management, and your goal is just kind of to be able to jump around and just have a good time, like, shooting guys with shotguns, then then yeah, chapter 2 might not be the game for you.
Yeah.
And I guess I just didn't expect that there was that big a chunk of the community that was so focused on the pure like boomer shooter part of Cultic, and just didn't really ever engage with the rest of it. And I guess, that was my mistake for not really getting that.
And it's I think what you're going through is what every single person who's ever made a sequel is going through.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You're never gonna make a better game. And the reason, I mean, it might be like in your opinion, and it probably is a better game, but it's not a better game publicly because people, they have this weird nostalgia,
Sure,
or they're attached to chapter 1. They're a chapter, like, for example, you might have people like me who say, I love how simple chapter 1 is. And I do, by the way, because I'm a simple guy. I like atmosphere and story and setting and mood. I don't care about economy, and people like me are going to play it and go, man, they forgot about what made chapter 1 great. And it's like, well, I'm not making chapter 1. I'm making chapter 2, you know, and that's okay. And so I think that ultimately, dude, if you're sitting at 85% on a sequel, you've done a good job. You've done a great job. These limitations are what make products great. I think if artists are given unlimited money and time to create something, they create a product that's amazing for them, but not for anybody else. This is something that I found true with Orson Welles, who directed, one of the greatest films of all time, Citizen Kane. He was young and he had studio limitations, and so he ended up creating a really amazing film. But becoming proud, he became wealthy and successful and proud. This is my interpretation of what ended up happening. And he ended up creating just a bunch of films that were really cool for him, but they came across as pretentious and dense and complicated for no reason. And I think you see this a lot with artists, is they just end up making stuff that is just way over the top. And it's like, getting back to the basics is in a way a blessing for a lot of developers. And I'm not saying you did that with chapter 2. I don't even know. I haven't even played it. I just I looked at it and it looks incredible. But I think that limitations to some degree are going to be a good thing for every artist, and keeping the project fairly simple. Otherwise, it will just become Jason's world, which I don't know if that's a good. It'll have like cats in it and cows, and it'll be in Kansas, and highly complicated economies.
Well, I think part of it too, and this is probably just a lesson that I imagine any game dev who releases, like you said, that releases a game and then a sequel will probably deal with, is like a lot of the changes that happened with chapter 2 were responses to chapter 1's biggest criticisms, like the level variety. That was a big criticism of chapter 1, and then, believe it or not, a lot of people criticize chapter 1 for being too short. Which it's like a 3 to 4 or 5 hour game.
It's great.
But so that was another big thing, is like the maps are too short, the game's too short. And so I was like, okay, so those, while the game is 97, 98% positive, these are the few criticisms it has, so let's work on those. And so, okay, these are the few criticisms we have. So like theoretically, if we fix these things, then it will be a 100% positive game, which of course is possible, right? And so, but then you get that effect of like, only when you try to look at like reviews for like a computer component on the internet, and all of the reviews are negative because it's only people who got one that didn't work who leave a review.
Exactly.
So it's like, so then you make these changes, and then suddenly you get all of the people who were really happy with how chapter 1 was that are now leaving the negative reviews because it changed. And it's like, well, crap. Like, because, when you've got threads on the Steam forum, which granted the Steam forum is its own can of worms, but when you've got a thread that's like 30 posts, 30 posts long of just people just complaining circularly about how much they hate the color palette. It's like the same 6 people, who are just, but that's what I see, is like, there's this thread that's constantly at the top of the boards of just like people hating the color palette. And so it's like, and there's not really anybody in there defending it either, which is fine. It's not their job to be on the internet defending it. But that's, as a developer, I see that, I'm like, well, crap, I guess, there's a bunch of people who are probably just okay with it, and then these people who want it fixed, but there's not people saying, no, don't change it at all. And so then you change it, and then those people who didn't want you to change it at all, suddenly they are now the ones who are really upset. And it's like, well, and that's kind of that, like, being reactive versus, you know, like, waiting and looking for trends. And
well, I think that something that I've been thinking about a lot is it's wild how important it is to have a dose of not necessarily humility, but like the ability to take criticism and be okay with critique. Because what happens with me, or what used to happen with me, is that if I got critique on Steam or on YouTube or something, I would get reactive. I would do a knee-jerk reaction in the other direction because it hurt so bad to get a negative reaction. Right. You know? And so I would try and course correct as quickly as I possibly could. When in reality, if you have a thick skin as a developer, you can get all this feedback and you can just sort of just like roll with the punches, and it doesn't really bother you. And it can keep you level-headed about, okay, do I actually need to fix something? You know?
Yeah.
So for me, what I found so helpful when it came to testing, and I don't know if you did this with Cultic Chapter 2, but I'm keeping my pool of, or my initial pool of testers very small and very precisely chosen. I'm choosing people that I trust with my children's lives, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like people, like very close friends, family members, not friends that are gonna, like, you know, kiss my ass,
right?
But like friends who are gonna be very. It's friends who I know like certain games. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So like if I have a friend who doesn't like immersive sims, for example, for my game Twisted Tower, if they don't like BioShock, they're not playing my game. There's no reason.
Right.
And so, or people who know how to make a first-person shooter map, like you, I'll get you to test the game, which you've been pivotal in Twisted Tower's development. I get people who I trust to test my games because feedback can be so all over the place, and you end up changing stuff or adding a map. Like for me, I'm adding a map. Why did I add a map? You know, instead you need to be listening to people who know a genre, who appreciate a genre, and they're also people you trust that are going to give you an honest opinion about your game because they want you to be successful.
Right.
Obviously, you can broaden that, but for me, it always starts with this core group of people, and that's where I make the most changes. And then public, beta testing, that's when it's more like bugs. Are people getting lost at certain places? Or is this overwhelming, like, I hate the main character, then you have a problem. But if it's like these, the vocal, what do they call it? The vocal minority.
Right.
You shouldn't really listen to them.
Well, that was like talking about like being reactive versus like just kind of like, so I feel like I've gotten a lot better as a developer about not being reactive in terms of like making changes, but I absolutely still take everything super personally. Oh man, my feelings were hurt in launch week. But anyway, so the reactive thing, it was kind of interesting having these two issues right off the rip, like one being navigation and like the map kind of thing, and the other being ammo, like there's not enough ammo. And I'm looking at this and it's like the streams that I have watched and the gameplay that I have watched of players who are constantly running out of ammo, they're not engaging with the game's mechanics. Like, they're like Magnum ammo is valuable in Cultic, and they, and I'll watch players on streams just like hold down left mouse and dump the entire lever action on like a pistol cultist who you could kill with one hatchet swing. And it's like, okay, I recognize that, yes, you keep running out of ammo, but this also, like, I don't want to validate this play style either, because then it trivializes the game for players that are engaging with the mechanics. And so it's like the ammo thing I was sitting on. Like I was like, I'm going to wait and see, like, if people can identify trends of like, yes, on this map at this point, there's just no shotgun ammo. And so everyone keeps running out. That's fine. Like I will happily go add some there. So that was a like sit and wait. But the map thing, it was immediately apparent that like, no, people are going to keep getting lost. Like this
Yes.
is not this is a developer failure on my end. And so the map, that was easy. And not only that, but if Cultic gets console ports in the future, the map needs to be there. Like that's just not something like the PC old school shooter players, a lot of them kind of expect these kind of sprawling like maps. But I don't know that like console players who are dipping their toes into this genre would be as forgiving with it, and that's fine. Yeah, no problem. I'll add a map. And so every time I would release like a devlog talking about the map, you get people who are asking, yeah, well, what about the ammo thing? I'm like, I don't know yet. I'm still thinking about it.
Scarce ammo is one of the greatest tools to achieving a tense game, and one where the player actually feels scared. Like in Cultic, you probably want people to feel a little bit tense, right? Especially chapter 2. Yeah. I was doing beta testing last week with my brother for Twisted Tower, and he was just getting wrecked in the first 30 minutes. He died like 3 times.
Is that still like basically the same as the demo, or is it like
a new? It's the same. No, I haven't changed any levels. It's the same design, level design. It's just the enemies have better AI now, and the gunplay is it was more complicated because you have secondary fire and you can purchase upgrades, and you have to be careful with what you buy because you have very limited or scarce coins or tickets in the case of Twisted Tower. Anyway, he died 3 times, and I wrote down on my notepad, I wrote down, make first 30 minutes easier. And I circled it. And then I at the end of his playthrough, what I found was he had slowed down and he was much more careful. And I could see that he was going after an encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I want you to be sweating and tense. And I want you to slow down. The reason I wanted him to slow down was the whole game is about the environment. It's an immersive sim. It's about the world. That's probably the foundation for the game, is the world and the setting and the vibes. Well, I had playtesters for the game last year when the game wasn't hard, and they're just running through this thing, and they said they felt bored and they didn't get it. But the moment you make it tense and difficult and punishing, then the player starts to play in that genre correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to realize why genres exist and why genre tropes exist, why a compass and a map exist, why the Magnum, you only get 2 bullets when you collect the Magnum ammo. It's because the developers intentionally designed that game and balanced it so that the players behave the way that the developers want them to, right? So you don't just change something and make something easier because someone got mad.
Mm-hmm.
It's about this holistic view. Okay, it's like, that's why it's so important, why I found it so important to sit down and watch people play a game.
Yeah.
Or play your game. Because if they're upset in the first 10 minutes, it doesn't mean that they're going to be upset about the same thing in an hour. They may actually understand why you did what you did in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's the trouble with the modern gaming industry or players, is that, and I've said this 1,000 times, yes, your demo, yes, the first 15 minutes of your game need to be fun and they need to be rewarded quickly. But the problem with that is that it creates weird expectations about the rest of the game. If you're giving them a juicy, delicious treat at the beginning of the game because you want to hook them, the problem is they might get really confused or not play correctly here. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's so hard to balance.
Yeah. And part of that, like being reactive thing that we're talking about too is, there's a lot of, there were a lot of threads and a lot of stuff going around when chapter 2 came out about like XYZ is impossible. Like I'm out of ammo here, blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to be really careful to like, because it's one of those things that with the map, like if I can chew on all this feedback and I can kind of get a good view of it, and it's like, despite everybody doing everything despite everybody like using the tools the game gives them, they're still struggling with resources, then yes, it's time to add more resources. But it's kind of like trying to guide players in when they're posting about this on the forums or in a review, for example, is like, well, like, can you walk me through like your strategy for this area? And you kind of try to talk them through like the game's tool set, and you find out like this player doesn't know that headshots deal like triple damage and that the game is encouraged. Like they got through chapter 1 without ever realizing that headshots are, and it's like, and that's a huge deal. That's like, I try to make this comparison so I don't like make people feel like I'm like, oh, you didn't see that. The first time I played Doom Eternal, I did not realize that the chainsaw regenerated fuel like 1 pip, and that the game is like borderline broken if you don't have that chainsaw available. And so I was like, I don't know how anybody's playing this game. Like this is awful. And then the second time when I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try it again. I caught the little tutorial note about it that I missed the first time, and I was like, oh, that makes a big. And so I'm trying to see if I can get players to have that like, oh moment, that light bulb moment. And it's like, hey, did you know headshots deal crazy amounts of damage? Did you know that fire just like murders all of these big tanky enemies? Did you know that the headshot, that the hatchet can like one hit kill almost every normal cultist? Like you don't even have to spend bullets on them. Like, did you like all this stuff, all these tools that are there? And sometimes you get through those and the response is like, it's a shooter, I just want to shoot stuff. And okay, like that's where I'm like, okay, then yeah, you might not enjoy this. But more often than that is when you get to as a developer, you get to have that really rewarding moment where somebody's like, I had no idea that I could dash, and that changes everything. Or yep. I haven't been using the tackle, and then they start using it and it's like, oh my God, like this is such, and seeing them go from like posting a thread about how much they hate the game to like just destroying the final boss is you're like, that's awesome. That's such a better outcome than like somebody complaining and then you as a response tripling the amount of ammo in the game. And then yes, now they can get through the game, but they didn't get to have any of these cool moments of engaging with the game's mechanics.
I want to do sort of a shotgun round here of things you've learned.
Okay.
I don't think people realize how valuable it is to have someone like you on this podcast, because you're normal. You're not part of some big AA or AAA studio. And by normal, I mean you're just a normal dude. You're not like some, I don't know, you don't have a huge social media presence on like YouTube. You're not like some famous YouTuber or something. So it's very, very exciting for me to be able to just go like pick your brain with pieces of advice. Because you've helped me so much as especially as a designer. So I want to start with design.
Okay.
You made Cultic, you made Cultic Chapter 2 and Bone Rooms. You've touched kind of the full gamut of indie game, or you've touched a lot. You've touched a lot of genres. Let's start with design. What are some design mistakes you've made in the past that you would do differently for your next game?
Just like overall game design specifically, or
yeah, or it can be granular, or it can be sort of big picture when it comes to design, like level design, game design, mechanics.
Yeah, well, I mean, like just tying into what we just talked about with Cultic was kind of a little bit of that bigger isn't always better mindset. Like I think that, like for example, like Chapter 2 some folks probably would have been less frustrated if it was 20 maps that were half the length of the existing 12 maps, because like I think despite the fact that you can save whenever you want in Cultic, I still think that like most folks, myself included, I am also this way. I don't consider saving in the middle of a level to be like a satisfying end to a play session, right? And so, you're going to have players who feel like this hour and a half long level, they have to finish it before. Yep. And so then it turns into something that they don't feel like they can just pick up and put down, which is really valuable. And that is to me as well. Like, I feel like the only things I play anymore are games that I feel like I can just pick up and put down, like playing a couple rounds of like Phasmophobia or Repo, or, like jumping in and working on my base in Minecraft a little, or, it's like things that I can do in 2 hours when I have a little bit of free time and get a meaningful session out of it.
Yeah.
And so like I would say like the bigger isn't always better. Was a bit of a lesson in like, just because I can doesn't mean I should. Just because I can make the Fairgrounds this giant 90-minute long level, it doesn't mean that we should, because, and some folks will love that. Some folks love the big sprawling maps with all this exploration. But I guess like accepting that there's going to be penalty, like consequences of that for the players that don't vibe with that.
Dude, you know what's funny is the levels that I have redone, me and Felipe, because he's back on board doing part-time work for me.
Oh, nice.
Which I'm really grateful for.
Nice.
The levels that me and Felipe have kept are the ones that are small.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't true with every genre, obviously, but with like games like you and I make, linear first-person shooters, oftentimes it's big enough. It's not big enough for you and me. You know, we could see the zoomed out version of the map, and we can see just how small it is.
Mm-hmm.
But like I was saying earlier, players don't know what's beyond that quad. They don't know it's just a skybox. They think it's a whole other part of the map. So it's much bigger in their mind than it actually is. And so I totally agree with you. Bigger isn't always better. More complicated isn't always better. More puzzling isn't always better, because at the end of the day, sometimes just hunting for a key is complicated enough for some people.
Sure.
Know?
Yep.
So let's move on to the second one. Okay. What are some production things you've learned? Some mistakes you've made? And by production, that means team, schedule, tools, cost, outsourcing.
Yeah. I would, I guess one that's particularly bit me in the butt over time is, and I don't know if this was like a sunk cost issue or not, but like sticking, because Cultic is still in a 2021 LTS version of Unity. Yes. And there's the particular version it uses has some infuriating bugs and crashes, and I've just like dealt with them for 4 years because I didn't want to because every time I upgrade Unity versions, it breaks like 40 of my scripts and it breaks like 100 shaders, because like Unity's just like, hey, just surprise, we deleted these functions from the engine, and I happen to use those functions. So I've been really hesitant to upgrade Unity versions. And that's something that, like, yes, I don't think you should upgrade your engine version every time there is an update, but like maybe after 3 years, or like between chapter 1 and chapter 2 would have been a great time to do it. Like, you know, when chapter 2's development started in 2023, that version would have already been 2 years newer. And so like that would have been a good time to upgrade. Yeah. And the same thing goes for tools. Like we used real-time CSG for Cultic's a lot of the map development that was brush based, because it runs in Unity, which is great, because then you don't have to do this pipeline of, you know, like if you're working in like Hammer or Trench Broom or whatever, where it's like export or save export and then import into Unity, and then like, oh, the scale on this is wrong or whatever, and then you have to go back and forth. Real-time CSG, I've always joked, like if I had to review it, it would be like lifesaver, could not have finished Cultic without it, 2 out of 10.
Yep.
Like,
I know.
It's free. It's made by, you know, like it's kind of just like a passion project, and it hasn't been in development since like 2019. And so it makes sense that it would be janky, but yeah, it's a mess. It's really buggy, but there's nothing like it. There's no other tool that lets you do CSG brush-based Boolean map development right inside the Unity editor. And that was so valuable. And so I don't know what I'm going to use next. I have no idea. But that was another thing that, like, yes, Nick and I, when I brought Nick on board, I could have chosen like, actually, you know what, we're gonna map in Hammer, or we're gonna map in Trench Broom, or you know, like I'm just gonna teach you how to model in Blender. And we could have changed tools. But I was like, no, I'm going to stick to what I know, and I'm just going to teach you all of the bugs in real-time CSG and how to work around them. And it was still really frustrating.
Yeah, the same is true with Pro Builder. We use Pro Builder, and it's just trash.
Yeah,
it's so bad, but
yeah,
lifesaver.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I use Pro Builder for like invisible walls and like water volumes, and when I just need to really quickly draw a primitive. In Unity, it's great for that. But like Ultra Kill and like Dusk, I think both heavily used Pro Builder to actually make levels, and I'm like, how that would have been that had to have been so frustrating.
I'm not going to do it again. I need to look at some of those tools you mentioned. But that's great, man. I think I have some marriage advice for you. This is related, I promise.
Okay.
Something my dad used to always say with marriage is, he said, and this is related to updating Unity and updating tools. He always said that every fight you refuse to have with your wife or your spouse is like laying a brick. And if you don't address various points of tension in marriage, all of a sudden you're going to be surprised that an entire wall is in front of you and your wife, and you don't even know why. That's why it's really important to address conflict with, whether it's in business or with a spouse. Oftentimes you don't realize that one small conflict is actually going to stack up to be a ton of conflicts, and you end up you're not going to get through that wall, right? And the same is true, I think, with what you're saying about Unity and tools and updating tools. I'm still stuck in 2022, right? Unity 2022. And I understand that feeling of like, man, I wish I had the fight with the editor for 6 hours,
Yep.
just get it done, get it updated. And so I do think there's definitely validity to not updating the editor ever and just stick with it. Like I stand by my decision to some degree, but there's also part of me that wishes every time, every quarter, just do an update. You know what I mean? Because now I'm looking at that brick wall. I'm like, if I update to Unity 6 or whatever it is now, the game is going to catch fire.
Yeah.
My PC will crash. Okay, so last shotgun question here, and then can we open up Cultic and Unity?
Yeah.
Okay. The last one is, what are some marketing things you've learned in the last, I guess, 7 years of development? Oof. Has it been 7 years?
Yeah. Everything is meaningless. Everything. Literally everything is meaningless. Man.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree. I think you and I had this conversation in the last episode.
It's
where I think you said basically just doesn't matter anymore. But
it's more, I guess it's more like there are baseline marketing steps that are pretty much always going to be good to follow. Like I would still always recommend that developers document their game as they're working on it, and just be engaged with the community. I think stuff like that is always going to be a net benefit. But like I had this on our list to kind of touch back on a little bit when we were talking about like targeting a viral launch versus a game that people will come back to 10 years from now. And I'm sure you've probably had some of the same feeling, and maybe we even talked about it, but it sucks to be in year 4 of working on a linear shooter where if you want to make 20 minutes of content for the game, you're going to be working on like a map for 2 months. You're going to be working on
easily
brand new art assets, new cutscenes, new music, to make 20, 30 minutes of gameplay in your linear shooter. It takes so much development time. And then and this is not me trying to complain. Cultic did great, way better than I expected it to. But when you're in like year 4 of content grind, and then you've got these Balatros, and this is not a dig on Balatro.
I know it's not. It's not. But I know exactly what you're saying.
You've got to get. I don't know how long Balatro took to develop, but I know it wasn't 4 years. And this, and it was something that was just kind of a fun thing for the developer to work on for his friends. It's got appealing, but very like minimal art, and this comes out and outpaces your game's performance by like hundreds of thousands of times, right?
Yes.
And it's not just like Balatro, it's games like Lethal Company, for example, which I really enjoyed Lethal Company. So again, don't take the audience out there, don't take any of this as digs against these games.
And in a way, you're sympathizing with all of us, every developer listening right now, which is like,
it's just like you're sitting there, you're like, what the hell am I doing? That I'm sitting there in like year 3.5 grinding away on Cultic. I've got like the Game Awards on my other monitor, and you're watching like Balatro like almost win like Game of the Year, and it's made like so much money that developer will never have to work, which is great. I mean, great for them. People obviously love the game, so like there's no fault there.
It's not that the game is bad. You're not saying that. You're saying that they caught lightning in a bottle.
Sure,
somehow.
Yeah. And it's like, what the hell am I doing? And it would have, I could have stopped. I could have thrown Cultic in the trash, and I could have focused on like, well, let's make a number go up game, because I like number go up games. I'm not a big fan of the like Balatro Clover Pit flavor, but like the Vampire Survivors Risk of Rain kind of number go up, I'm all about. So I get it, and I've wanted to work on a game like that, and so it was very tempting to like. I could put Cultic on the shelf, and I could like take my Cultic assets, and I could make like a Cultic Vampire Survivors knockoff, and it would probably do okay, and it would probably only take me like 6 months to a year to put together, and I might still do that because it does sound really fun, honestly.
Can I offer a really quick warning there?
Please do.
And you, dude, you're more successful than I am in the game dev world, so my advice is, take it with a grain of salt.
I will not. I will take it. I will take it as gospel. I'm ready.
Well, I've seen developers, I won't say names, I've seen developers who shift gears completely and abandon, and you probably know who I'm talking about, but they've abandoned what they're so good at to create that viral game. And they don't know how to do it. I think these viral number go up games, or like the friend slop games, where like Danny made do you know Danny?
Is that the guy who made Muck, or is that a different guy?
Yeah. He made Muck.
I love Muck. Muck, which takes like 30 minutes to beat and is a free game. That was basically, he made it as like, somebody was like, I bet you can make a multiplayer game, and he was like, bet you I can.
Well,
Muck has almost derailed Cultic so many times, because I like to play it with one of my best friends as just like a screw around game. And it's like, I want to do this. I want to just I want to just make something minimalist and fun and just anyway, sorry, please continue. I'm getting off.
Well, but look at this game called Mega Bonk. Look how successful this is. Do you know Mega Bonk?
I know it.
Okay. Look who made it. Vedinad.
I can't read it.
It says Vedinad. Here, hold on. Do you know who that is?
I don't.
That's Danny.
Is it really?
In backwards, it's Danny Dev.
Oh, how about that?
So the reason I bring this up is Danny has a passion, and it's in his blood to make these silly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not friend slop, but it's just odd.
Sure.
Number grow up games.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong that this is a number grow up game.
No, it is.
I'm seeing a lot of numbers, but point being, it's in his blood. Mm-hmm. And so all I'm saying is that I'll speak for me. I'm not going to make a number go up game because I don't care. I don't like those games. I won't play those games. I'm not drawn to those games. I'm going to make what I'm gifted at and what my forte is.
I like those games. I like them.
I like them a lot.
Well, if you like these games, then I think that's great. But I just want to remind you, you're really good at aesthetic and moody, spooky environments. You're good at hearkening to nostalgia and story. Mm-hmm. So I always talk about F. Scott Fitzgerald and his book, The Great Gatsby. I bring it up a lot because that book wasn't successful when it launched, and it took a while for it to build this worldwide fame and something that we all read in school that stars Leonardo DiCaprio in modern day. It's a tiny little book. It's seemingly shallow and odd, and it's like, why would you spend this time writing this character study of a yuppie, basically? Mm-hmm. But there's so much more weight to that book than the books that were forgotten in when was it written, the 30s or the 40s? So I just want to say, like, I look at Cultic and I'm like, this has a heart, and it's so meaty. And you tongue in cheek kind of complain about how long it takes to make it, but it's obvious that it took a long time to make when I look at it. And I just want to encourage you, and this is something I tell myself all the time, there is so much we don't know about what we're making. Just because something goes viral doesn't mean that it was worth our time. And just because something made a lot of money doesn't mean that it is a valuable game. Sometimes we have to wait. My theory about Cultic is Cultic is not some like cultural trendy game where it's like, hey, I'm going to catch on to the zeitgeist and sell 1 million copies. Cultic is a game where it's like, no, like this thing has staying power and continues to sell for years, for a decade or a decade plus. And I would rather make those kind of games. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to be like super like spiritual or woo woo or whatever. I just think it's great to like stand your ground and make great games that have a beating heart for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
Now, will Megabonk have a beating heart for 10 plus years? Probably. I mean, I think it's that good.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of these kind of games out there that are just one and done, especially the multiplayer games. They last for like a month and then it's over, you know?
Yeah. Well, the problem is like not only when I look at, so like I said, like Balatro, stuff like that, the Balatro Clover Pit, the more like gambling number go up games, that's not really my cup of tea. So like, while it's like, I can't believe that sold that many copies. Those don't really like get me changing course, but games like Crab Champions, like Mega Bonk, that are more like combat build crafting number go up. That gets me as a player and a developer, where I'm like, I want to make one of those just because it sounds fun. Like I want to make, because that's, like I said before, with Cultic, with Twisted Tower, with these like linear shooters, if you want to make 30 minutes of gameplay, it's like it's 2-3 months of work. It is brand new. It's brand new models, brand new textures, brand new everything. But like, if you make a game like Megabonk, right? Like Crab Champions, whatever, you can add one new enemy and generate, because those are in a way kind of like procedural. It's like you have like a base set of, I haven't played Megabonk yet, I don't know if it's proc gen or not, but like Vampire Survivors, in that way that you have a limited scale of map, and then you just are sprinkling ingredients in it and seeing how they mix. And that's kind of the magic of build crafting games like that, is you can add a new weapon and you can add one new perk, one new upgrade, and suddenly you've completely shifted the game's meta.
Yeah.
And now, and so like I could spend an afternoon making and tweaking an icon for one new upgrade, add it to the game, release it on like a beta branch, and you've got 4 more hours. Like someone could just do a few more runs just to check it out, and you've generated all of this new. And I think that would be a really fun formula to have, because like I said, with Cultic, if I want to do more Cultic, I'm locking in for months of work to put out 20-30 minutes of gameplay. Like Interlude is like a 25-30 minute map. It took like 4 months to make that. Like it took a while. And I want to be able to mess with functions and design new and interesting stuff that's not just content grind. I'm so burned out on content grind. And so that's where like the Mega Bonks and stuff like that really got to me, as I was sitting here 4 years into developing this game, is like, I want to do anything but content grind right now.
I know. Let me ask you a question. What kind of style of game do you think AI benefits more?
Like generative AI, or
no, like code, AI code.
Okay.
AI code. Yeah, generative AI. Yeah, sure. Generative AI, like 3D models, 2D art. Who has more advantage? Or who's going to use those tools more? And I'm not saying, for everybody listening right now, because I got in trouble on Twitter, I'm not saying Megabonk is friend slop. I'm not saying that Crab Champions is friend slop. I'm just talking about friend slop. Friend sloppy games, multiplayer games, or like number go up games. Do those kind of games benefit from AI, generative AI and generative code, or these content grind games that are story driven, linear games?
So I think we've probably talked about this before. I am not a generative AI person at all. Like I recognize its value in things like assisting with code production. Like I can see where that would be useful. I'm personally very much I'm going to do it myself kind of guy.
Yes.
So like for stuff like that, and like Unity's new AI tools, for example, like one of them was a tool that you could like basically ask it a question and it would crawl Unity's documentation. Like that's cool. Like if it works, that's cool. Like as long as it works and it doesn't burn down a rainforest to make it happen, like that stuff's useful. Like if Unity ever puts out an AI profiler to be like, hey, can you analyze this frame and tell me where I'm losing?
They haven't. Yeah.
Right. Like I was really mad. I won't go too deep into this. When I read Unity's AI presentation, I was so mad that we were getting like AI generated 2D sprites before like an AI memory profiler. Like
100%. 100%.
So like AI, I think that there's still like a really big black mark around like if your game on Steam has the AI badge on it. At the moment, I think there's still going to be a big like a big like that people it's gonna turn people away, especially when like what was like Metal Eden was kind of a like I haven't played it, I'm not very familiar with it, so forgive me if I butcher the genre, but it's kind of like a retro shooter adjacent type of game, but it's got more like Doom 2016 like AAA style graphics, and it had like a single AI generated voice in it, and it was like from my understanding, it was like a really minor character. The character themselves, like it was like a robot character, and they used AI for that voice, and like people were pretty upset about that. And I get it, because like if it is a robotic character, you could have paid anybody on Fiverr to record a really stiff robot voice, and then you could have filtered the pants off of it, and you would have been done. So like for me in general, I don't think generative AI is ethical enough to benefit anything, especially in terms of art. Code is a different story.
People will be mad about that. You just said the unspeakable thing. You're not allowed to say that.
Ethical, yeah. Well, no,
You're not allowed to say. You're not allowed to say that generative code is different than generative art, because code is art. But of course, subconsciously, everybody knows it's different. There's something different about code versus art.
I think there is the same ethical problem there, that like Cultic's code is not great, right? It's Jason was learning C# as he went kind of deal, and so like a lot of my code is a mess. And so like if somehow like, you know, Copilot crawled my code and input it, you know, like basically like learned from it, put it in its model, like without my consent, that's pretty uncool. But like any code that any experienced programmer is going to write would have been better than mine to begin with. And so like, I don't really care if somebody uses my code. And like the JSAWS Games Discord has a game dev channel, and I frequently would be like, yeah, here's my code. Like, there you go. You can learn from it. But it's just like the fact that there's like no consent involved is what.
Where is AI scrubbing code from?
I don't know. This was a theoretical.
Are they scrubbing code from Halo?
I don't know.
I think that it's scrubbing code from like Stack Overflow and stuff.
Yeah, it might be.
Or GitHub, public repos on GitHub. Sure. By the way, everybody listening, I'm not saying this is such a sticky subject, and I guess I understand why, but I'm not saying that's people should be fine with, you know, code getting scrubbed. I'm just saying we don't fully know. I don't fully know where the code is being scrubbed, so that's a good question to ask. But by the way, Jason, the reason I ask who benefits more from AI, the people who make these quick number go up games that, and I'm not saying all of them are easy to make, I'm just saying some of them are, or people who make linear story driven games that have a cohesive visual identity. My theory.
So you go first. Sorry,
I'll give you my theory.
Yep.
My point about that question is the games that have this silly, childish, incohesive visual identity, those games benefit from AI immensely, because you could throw together a stupid looking model, a 3D model, or a stupid looking 2D sprite and slap it into your game. And it's like, this is ironic and silly because that sprite doesn't even match the 3D art. And I'll just throw together some random code and make this really funny. And this is a really funny multiplayer game, and it's great for streaming. The problem with this is, yes, AI helps that, but now everybody's going to make those games. So the demand goes way down for these kind of games, and the demand skyrockets for games like Cultic. That's my theory, is that in 5 years, the people who can create a visually cohesive game with a very strong story and a cohesive narrative that takes you from point A to point Z, those games are highly valuable because nobody's making them, because they're addicted to AI development tools. So that's my theory.
No, and I agree with you. What I wanted to add to it is that I think like what I see happening and what you kind of describe, it's literally the exact same. It's already happening now. It's just now they're asset flips, and soon they will be generative AI. And so right. And so like right now, you know, you've already got a lot of these, you know, like we'll call friend slap games, or these like kind of like streamer bait kinds of games. Will, you know, like they will use assets, and as a result, like you said, there's no visual cohesiveness, but because it is this goofy $3 play it on stream once game, you don't really care. But at least in that instance, the person who made the assets is still getting paid from the purchase of them. But I think, you know, if generative AI, or when generative AI gets to the point that you can hop into Unity 6.4, and now they have a 3D mesh generator that basically, what you're going to be making is very quickly iterated on products. And there are asset flips out there that turned out to be great games. Like Phasmophobia is one that, like, that game was like it was a really solid gameplay loop wrapped in literally everything as assets. And I think that'll still happen. Like, if there's somebody who has a great game idea, and maybe they themselves are just a great coder and they have no other skills, then they could use generative AI to build the rest of those assets. And in an alternate reality where generative AI was set up in like an ethical way, that wouldn't have really been a big deal. You would have sacrificed personality and soul and visual cohesiveness in the same way that you do with an asset flip. But with an asset flip, people do see them as, like, oftentimes we'll see them as like a lower level of quality, or maybe they have a stigma with them, but at least they're ethically made, It, like, the worst you get is like mobile slop, right? Like mobile game asset slop. But
well, there's two sides to that equation, and it's so funny that you started talking about the ethical one, and I started talking about the commercial side of it. It just shows how much of a sleaze I am. But I'm thinking about, like, by the way, I think the way to win the AI argument is not to do it ethically, or to make the ethical argument, because ethical arguments never really, I don't think they have strength, because people, at the end of the day, if it's easy to make a game and you're alone in your room, you're going to do it unethically. Most people. I'm not saying I would, and I'm not saying you would. I just think the better way to make an argument is to say, look, if we don't want AI to win, we need to make an economical argument, which is, you want to be the game that stands out. You want to be the game that people remember. Especially in the upcoming years, when every game that comes out is going to be visually incohesive because everyone's just using prompts. The way to stand out is to do it the right way and to do it ethically, which is make it look amazing, make it look visually cohesive. Even if it's a multiplayer game or a number go up game. Imagine if you make a game that's a number go up game, but it looks like a JSON game, a JSOS game. You know what I mean? Has that visual cohesion. That, I think, is how game devs win right now. You've got to be the developer that stands out and stops making silly looking games. I like silly looking games. Like, I think it's fine. But, like, in the next 2 years, every game's going to look silly. Because I just see it. Am I wrong here, Jason? It seems like exponentially the games that are coming out are looking more and more dumb. It's like super colorful, ugly, incohesive. Where are the games that look like Cultic? I guess they exist, obviously, but it just seems like the frequency is going down.
Well, I think some of it's just like you have to be eye-catching. And honestly, like, I would argue that's the only reason that, like, Cultic got off the ground to begin with. Like, obviously it wasn't like silly, ugly, incohesive, whatever. Well, to some people it probably is.
It's
but
not. It looks amazing.
It was like it was making a horror game in a colorful retro games color palette. And that's when I first saw the Pico 8 Doom port, Poom, which is where I got the idea for that. It was the same thing, as I was like, I can't believe how good Doom looks using this really colorful retro palette. And so, like, Cultic got off the ground because people saw, like, it was just visually eye-catching. Because, like, Twitter's discoverability is gone. Like, it's dead. And so, which sucks, because, like, probably the only piece of advice I felt comfortable giving devs before about, like, how to market yourself, I don't think is even valid anymore, because it's a different Twitter. Like, the discoverability, the value of hashtags, the value of audience is gone in favor of engagement, like engagement baiting. And I don't know if that's going to change, when it will change. With this current level of, like, the S wordification. I don't know if I can swear on the podcast. But
which word?
The old
shit word?
The old enshittification, where everything is just, everything's like ad revenue. I don't know that we'll get back to that. But, like, it's that if your goal is to, like, like the way that Megabonk was advertised, it was very much using this like very ironic youngster lingo, and like all in like these crazy silly visuals, and that's, again, not to those listening, that's not to say it looks bad by any means, but like it was like
intentionally looks bad. It intentionally looks bad. You know what I mean?
It's just attention grabbing, and that works, and that did work to Cultic for a degree, and so like I think you're I think that's probably part of the point, is that as when generative AI gets to the point where it can produce game assets, which will have horrible topology, to start, and will have terrible deforms, but it won't matter, because like that's going to be it's like the Cruelty Squad lookalike games, where it's like Cruelty Squad had this very visually harsh look to it. It was very kind of and I haven't played it. I'm not part of that fan base, and this is not me. Again, this is not me shitting on it. This is me trying to like describe it. But it's a very visually harsh game, and that's kind of just part of the design. And it's very eye catching. Like it kind of makes you stop and be like, what in the hell am I looking at? Yeah. And a lot of people have parroted this stuff, because Cruelty Squad did very well. It seems like people really enjoy it. It's a good game. I haven't played it myself, so I can't really comment on it.
But this is go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
I was just going to say, like, people go for the same aesthetic, where it's just like they just kind of throw whatever at the wall, because there is a way to make it endearing in this like very ironic way. And so, and I think, like the generative AI can go the same direction. Like, yes, everything is a visual mess, but if you can just ironically be like, well, that's the game style, which I can do with Cultic. Like some of my textures are extremely crunchy and like and noisy and hard to read, and it's like, well, that's the game style, so I get away with it. And so I'm not saying I'm innocent. It's a different kind of doing it, but it doesn't make me innocent either. I think the ethical argument will be a lot, because I don't think many people have problems with the ethics of asset stores. Like you're paying them for their work. The issue there is more like with quality. Like, does this make my game feel cheaper? Does this make my game not look visually consistent? And that's kind of for the audience to decide mostly. But the ethics argument, I think, will be, because you'll still have that same problem with AI generated stuff. Is this visually consistent? Does this look good? Do the deforms look good? Does the texturing look good? Am I able to work with this UV mapping in a way that I can apply extra shaders to it? And then you have the ethics on top of it still. So,
well, go ahead and I think you're right. The ethics will always be there. Go ahead and open up Unity here, dude. Yes.
Are you seeing my? This is the bunker, the penultimate map, and it is a big boy.
Okay, one sec. I'm going to turn on my fan. It's getting hot in here. It started getting really hot in here the moment you opened up Unity.
That's weird how that happens.
Oh, cool, dude. All right, take me through. And then I also want to see it in play mode, like so people can see like what it looks like behind the camera, which is crazy how much it'll change.
Yeah, versus... let me open a map that's easier to visually parse, because this map is a mess of triggers and vertically stacked stuff. I'll open the first map in Cultic, which will be less spoilery too. So this is where's the spawn? Here's the spawn. So this is E1M1. This is the auto map is kind of overlaid on everything right now. So I'll just turn that off. So yes, this is just in like Unity's flat shading. So this doesn't have Cultic's color palette applied to it, but all of Cultic's texture work is done using the color palette. So
wait, how's the color palette applied?
It's just a post-processing like color lookup table. So it basically it's just quantizing it's just a color limiter.
The right word, yeah.
And so these are like these brush-based interiors are like what we were using real-time CSG for. I don't know if any of these are active.
Bro, can I see it in play mode without the quantizing?
Yeah.
I want to see how bad it looks. And I'm not trying to be mean. That's how it's this way.
No,
with every
I feel the same way. It kills me when I see people play Cultic without the palette.
They can turn it off in the options.
Yeah. Let me maximize this too. Okay, so this is palette on the new palette, the V5 palette, and then actually let me get to somewhere where the lighting is a little more significant. We'll go out here where the palette's a little more pronounced. Okay, and we'll turn on the lighter too, because you can really see the limiting on the ground. So this is palette on. We'll go and turn the palette. Actually, first, so you can roll back to earlier versions of Cultic's palette. Bro. So this is the original palette.
It looks like the first one.
Yeah. This is the OG palette, and then I think V2 was what 1.0 launched with. We're going the wrong direction here.
That's
so
fun.
so V2 is what chapter 1 originally launched with. Is this palette here?
Why did you change it?
It's pretty much just anytime I identify a significant gap in the color palette, I add something into it.
Yeah.
So like you can see here that like this asphalt below me, which is actually a pretty detailed texture, is just like 2 shades of brown basically.
Yeah.
And then when we switch back to the version 5 palette, you'll see wrong direction again. You'll see like how much more detail pops up in it.
Yeah, but you can't do too much because then it won't feel retro.
Right. And then so then this we'll turn it off entirely.
Yeah, let's see it off.
Color filtering. We'll turn off dithering too. So with it off, it
still
looks
great.
Yes, I'm proud of the texture work I did, but like this just so much looks like the standard Unity shader because it is. This is all just standard Unity specular without. So like with this turned off, I die on the inside. It kills me so much. It's just like you lose. But it's like the option is there for a reason. I get that people won't like the palette. The palette has been kind of polarizing and controversial since day one, so it's fine. But still, just like what you're, it's like you like like if you play the original Doom with texture filtering where everything is smoothed together, like it's a completely different look. And
let's zoom out now from it. Now that we've seen this, can we zoom out that same location? Yeah, and I'm not doing this because I'm trying to be controlling. I just know my audience they're gonna like to see the difference between what it looks like in editor. That's so cool, Jason.
Yeah, so this is the big terrain blob of the map.
Yep.
And then the area that we were just in here is the sun. And there's all these giant boxy. These are all just like ambient sound and light triggers, basically.
What tool is that? Is that
it's just a cube.
I know, but it's just a trigger. I see. It triggers the music.
Yeah, I just have a script that fades between light and audio zones.
Sweet.
And so so this is the area we just spawned in. It's all we can turn on the actual lighting too. Yeah. These are so one of the big optimizations with chapter 2 was consolidating lights. So like before, like both of these lights had their own point light on them, and now there's one larger point light that's in between them, and then they're just tied together. So if you break both of these lights, the light goes away.
This is a big noob mistake that a lot of new 3D game developers make. They think every light needs a point light.
Oh yeah, no. This is I was very guilty of this. That was one of the biggest optimizations. But it also looks
exactly same here, and everything has a shadow. Now for me, it's like I found that one light looks way better than 5 because it's much more cinematic. You know,
originally on this part of map 2, every single one of these point lights, every single one of these light fixtures had a point light on it, and there was like 36 point lights on this structure alone. And so this like very low poly area was generating like 600,000 vertices or triangles.
Yep.
And so now it's like this point light controls all 6 of these.
Yes.
And these, these ones control. And so that was like stuff like that was a huge game changer for optimization.
And they're also are they occluding out as well?
Like this
they have a script on them, or are these tagged?
Cube. Yeah, so this cube here, basically let me bring the inspector back. So this has a light portaling script on it that controls I guess that's not those lights. Anyway, so like it's just a class I wrote that's called light portal, and it has a list of lights. And then any light that you drag, so like this is controlling like this light, and then like this little burn barrel over here.
Cool.
And so whatever's in that list, when you enter this square, it turns on, and when you leave the square, it turns off.
Does it fade them in, or does it just pop them in?
There's a little float here that controls how fast they fade in or out.
Yeah.
So for like entering like a cave, like if you're walking into like this cave over here, the light fade is really slow. It happens over like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But for areas where it's like once you walk through a doorway, all the lights inside, it's like 30 frames and they're gone.
Now, if people who are aware or listening I want them to be aware, this is not some trivial optimization. Like this is huge.
Right.
especially if they have got shadows.
Right. Since Unity, or sorry, since Cultic is completely real time lit, because I hate light baking.
I mean, I do too, and it also doesn't look very good because you lose your specular and metallic. Light baking isn't as bad. I sound like a know-it-all. I'm sorry.
No,
But
you're fine.
I've just been through the baking process
Yeah.
with specular and metallic, and I'm not sure you have.
I've tried baking a couple of times, and in both times I was like, this is awful. I don't want to do,
Yeah.
I don't like the workflow of baking.
Not only is baking hard with just a standard albedo, you lose specular and metallic values. They're gone. They're wiped when you bake. And so you have to place a bunch of probes all over the place.
Right.
There's no such thing as a metallic probe, as far as I'm aware. So metallic values are gone. And so if you, let's say you have a metallic map on, let's say your crates, all of your crates are going to be black.
Yep.
If they have metallic values. So you have to trick Unity, because Unity doesn't have a way to bake metallic probes. So, and if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. If people are listening, just because I want to learn and I want to know, but that's my experience.
Another big optimization that something I just didn't know about actually until like this last year was my thought process was that like if a point light, like obviously way out here at the edge of your point light is when it's not really going to be affecting anything. But my thought was like right now, this big cliff mesh here is getting re-rendered by this light because they're touching. And my thought was that like if the light doesn't touch the mesh at all, then it doesn't re-render it. And that is not correct. If any part of this circle touches the bounding box of this mesh, which would be which would basically be like, oh God, I didn't mean to do that. Which would basically be like a big, like if you think of it like a giant square, the bounding box, if any part of it touches the bounding box, which means that before this entire map, all of this terrain was one mesh because it's relatively low poly. So like this entire mesh was like 1,700 triangles. And that's not a big deal until every single point light in the map is re-rendering it. And so suddenly this 1,700 triangle mesh is getting rendered 60 times and then more with shadows. And so then it turns into like 100K. At any given time, I'm losing 100,000 triangles to just the terrain. And so like the terrain wound up getting broken up into multiple meshes that are all occluded separately. And like that was a huge optimization. I just didn't know it worked that way. So like real-time lighting, I love working with real-time lighting because it's like what you see is what you get. You don't have to sit through 8-hour-long, 20-hour-long bake times only for there to be some artifact you have to go and clean up and do it all over again.
Exactly.
And then like you said, you lose a lot of that real-time specular metallic data, which is really frustrating.
Yep. What's so funny is I spent 3 months maybe with Felipe learning light mapping and implementing it to every single level. And by implementing, what we had to do was we had to mark all of the correct objects as static, because you can't light map things that aren't static. And that's a huge undertaking. And then we also had to place all of our probes. Also, we have like, let's say 200 lights in a scene. We have to mark the ones that are baked as baked, the ones that are mixed as mixed. And by the way, mixed, for the people who don't know, mixed lighting is the shadows can be dynamic, but the light source itself cannot. I can't remember.
I think it's that the light contributes to.
That's also correct, GI. But
so like if this barrel fire here were mixed, then it would apply to the baked map. But then it would also apply real time to dynamic objects.
That's right. And then also, finally, you have to figure out what you want it to be dynamic.
I think that's how it works.
Well, for us to know everything, it would be ridiculous expectation. But I'm going off of memory here. And then finally, you have your dynamic lights or your real time lights, which can move and they affect all objects, including static objects. So we did all of that only to find that the real culprit was shadows. That was the real culprit. And so all I did was I turned off all the shadows, except for a few that were important. And I had people say, oh, Thomas, that's terrible. Don't do that. But then I'd have testers play the game, and they had no idea that the shadows were even off.
You want to see how same conclusion, realizing that when I'm pushing 2.8 million triangles on Fairgrounds, that almost half of it is shadows, and it's like, this is
Yeah.
Fairgrounds, the biggest map of chapter 2.
That's
It's
so
a, it's a
cool, Jason.
monster. But so what I did, which is like the same kind of cheat, was I was like, okay, well, when you are running this map, there is a fog that limits your render distance, because it's snowing. It's supposed to be like a snowy map. B, I am cheating because I don't want to render more than I have to. And like all of these big orange cubes, these are all giant occlusion volumes that are just blocking your view of different parts of the map. to like brute force, because like when you're walking around on the ground level, you can like see through these fences, you can see through these trees. So what I also found out was, instead of turning off shadows altogether, you can limit how far away they render. And so this fog, at like 50 meters away from the player, you can't see through this fog. So I just made it so shadows don't render past 50 meters away.
Do you know what your draw distance for your shadows are right now?
In this map, it's 50 meters is what it's clamped to.
That's what it is in Twisted Tower. It's a 50 or 60.
Yeah.
This is why, for everybody, most people know this, but if you don't know this, it's a fun fact, why so many 90s games loved fog, right?
Mm-hmm.
And early 2000s games. This is why like high fog feels nostalgic. It's because they have to use it. They have to cull things out at a very close distance.
Yeah.
So Silent Hill must have been an easy game to make, at least when it comes to like optimization, because they just had dense fog, 20, 30 meters away from the player.
Yeah. And like, and definitely the quote unquote, I guess, right thing to do, would have been to go through and individually all of these meshes, like make sure that everything. So like a lot of the meshes in this map are combined so that they're only doing one. Like if there's like, if you're in this area, there's no way that you're like not going to be seeing these buildings. And so they're just merged together, because what you in game in optimization, at least in Unity, you've got what you call draw calls, which is basically every time if you think of your GPU as like, like an artist with like a paint palette, and every time you want to change colors, he has to like wash his brush off, change to a different brush, and then paint. And that's kind of what a draw call is. It's basically the GPU putting its current tool down and picking up a different one. And so these houses all together are the same amount of triangles either way, but it can either be one draw call where it just draws all of them at once and then the GPU is done, or it can be the GPU has to switch tools every single time. And there's probably like a graphics programmer out there who's like, what an idiot. That is not how it works.
That is so true. Both things you said are true. I believe what you said about the draw calls are true, but there is always someone who understands draw calls better.
Oh, sure.
Because I've had meetings with advisors with optimization. I'm like, please help me understand draw calls.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll sit and we'll do a whole meeting about how to optimize draw calls, and I'll do everything that they said to do. And we'll merge meshes, all this stuff, and then the draw calls are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what is happening? So all I found was if you want low hanging fruit with optimization, kill the shadows, kill them, and just do one light that has a really cool shadow. Like for example, a shadow of that Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And
So like
shadow.
This area used to have like each of these strands of lights had its own point, not each bulb, but each line had its own point light. And then the tree had its own point light. And then these lamps had their own point light. And then these barrels had their own point light. And so when you walk into this area, your frame rate just like gets cut in half.
Yeah.
And just because it's like you have to render like all of this stuff, you have to render all these props. And Cultic's voxel models are really expensive because they have a lot of little triangles in there. And so this area was tough. And so it came down to like meshing all of these together so that they render one time, and they aren't, because otherwise it's like every single point light that touches these renders them. But there's times you don't want to do that. Like let's fly. I'm gonna turn lighting back off. I'm gonna fly way over here. We'll do like I don't remember. Okay, so these houses are all cold. These ones are not all combined together, because in this case, if you're standing right here, you can't see any of these buildings. And so these can be culled out separately.
Yes.
But if you're standing over here, you can see these ones, but like, you might not necessarily be able to see this one or this one. And so like this was a situation where it didn't really seem like, no matter where I stood here when they were all meshed together, I was never saving anything. But because of how tall these tents are and how tall these buildings are and how tall these trees are, quite frequently I could be in a spot where I only have to render one of these buildings at a time. Like if I'm standing here, I only need to render like maybe these two buildings because I can't see these at all. And so in that case, merging these together wasn't saving me anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, this map sucked to optimize. It took many passes.
Can we shift gears and take a look at an interior? Because interiors are different.
Yeah.
At least in my experience. By the way, I wanted to say, it's gonna, when Twisted Tower comes out, it's gonna look like I ripped you off. Okay, I'm just gonna say it out loud. We have a level called Fairground Forest, and we made it a year and a half ago. So either one of us ripped each other off, or neither of us did, which that's my assumption.
We conspired together to rip each other off.
So I have a forest level in Twisted Tower, which is like carnival tents and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if it looks that way, but that's what
every game inspires something else.
Well, I didn't see this, is what I'm saying. I had no idea.
Okay.
I had no idea.
I believe you. Don't worry. So we'll go the opposite direction. So the fairgrounds was this massive, sprawling, wide open map, and then this is the manor, which is Nick's baby. This was pretty much his map. That was.
Does Nick love Castlevania 64?
Nick loves Resident Evil.
Okay.
So
this feels like the villa in Castlevania 64. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I decorated it, did the texturing, set up the encounters, blah blah blah. But the layout was all him. I'm gonna turn the auto map off so we can see what we're looking at.
It looks so good, Jason. I love this Victorian flair. Oh.
Yeah, and this map was like almost all original assets. Like almost everything in the manor I had to make for the manor. Like I didn't have these wooden doors or this wooden trim or because like everything in Cultic up to this point had mostly been like run down, dilapidated structures. But then we're like, okay, well, if we want to make a fancy Resident Evil mansion, like we're just gonna have to make a bunch of stuff. But so yeah, we'll do in editor here for this.
I want to see how it looks, and then can you talk to us eventually about how, I'm going to assume that this is not all modular.
Turn the palette back on.
No,
that would have been way too easy.
A lot of Unreal developers, and I hate to call out Unreal developers, everything's modular.
Mm-hmm.
They've got like 1 billion walls that are making a room.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to talk about how you're putting this together. I'm sure some of it's modular.
Yeah.
A lot of it's dressing, and a lot of it is just big fat meshes.
I mean,
for an entire hallway or an entire room is an entire mesh. This looks incredible, dude. Oh, I love this aesthetic. See, this is what I was talking about earlier. How don't throw your. I'm not saying you're gonna, but don't forget what your forte is. This looks so good, dude.
Yeah, the manor was a ton of fun. But so the manor is like the opposite. I'm gonna leave play mode again so I get some frame rate back. The manor is the polar opposite of actually I lied. I can show you this in the auto map, and then you'll actually see what the layout looks like.
Oh, sweet. You want to show off your auto map?
I do. Well, it's easier than trying to look through all the ceilings and triggers, and so we'll just do a full map reveal here. And I could turn the auto map back on, would also help a lot with that because I switched it off so we can see.
Oh, right. Yeah, you need that.
Yeah, turning the auto map back on is a big help. And then I have to re-reveal it, and then maximize my view. Okay, so here's the manor, and it's all unexplored, so it's all dark color. But so this is the extremely tight interior of the manor, like that dining room that I was just showing off. That is this room here. I'm gonna increase the size of my culling here. So that's the dining room that we were just in. Is this the relatively small room here?
Yeah,
and then I'll turn the mask back off. So and then this is the whole of the manor. So it's very tight, very compact, a lot of rooms. Surprisingly, it's a pretty linear map, all things considered. But yeah, so this is just what Nick is really good at, is just connecting box to box to box to box.
Yes.
And just throwing these areas together. That's just
if he likes Resident Evil, it explains a lot, because the whole fun of Resident Evil is, I guess, backtracking. And going to old rooms that you remember, and revisiting areas. It's so exciting.
And then it's still got an outdoor segment, so we still got to play around with some.
You have a directional light, or is it just ambient lighting?
There is a directional for outdoors for getting
turn on.
Yes. So I wanted to be able to get these shadows through this lattice, and so that I had to get from a directional light.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're inside certain zones of the manor, if you're in a room like this, this light zone will disable the directional light because you can't see it, and the directional light creates a bajillion shadows no matter what.
Well, show me really quick, Jason, how you're putting this level together. What are the various chunks and pieces?
Yeah, so there is a lot of stuff that is prefabbed in terms of decorations. Like let's go in here. So like this table is a prefab. These suits of armors are prefab. So like at any point in time, for prop work, I can drag I can drag one of these in here and put it wherever, and cost myself a bunch of frames because these voxels have a bajillion triangles in them. But then like the map itself is what we used real-time CSG for. And I have to convert it back to a usable model real quick, which Unity is really going to enjoy. Okay, so when it's in an editable state, these are all brushes. So this you can just kind of like click and drag, and it's all Boolean. So like if I wanted to add a window here that looked outside, you just make a box and I drag it out, and hey, look, now I've got a window. And of course, I still have to texture it and would have to redo collisions for it. But this workflow of just being able to like punch a door or a window wherever is awesome for a game like this. The downside being that besides real-time CSG being unsupported and really buggy now, is that you are kind of limited to this kind of relatively low poly geometry. Like, let me pull up a tab here of like the hammer editor. So the hammer editor that Valve uses for source games is very similar. It is also brush based, but of course this was used to make like Left 4 Dead. Actually, let's see if there's
explain to people listening what you mean by brush based.
Right. So it's every single one of these shapes is referred to as a brush. Stop selecting my light zones. Stop it. That's the other problem. These big triggers is like, did you want to click on this? No, I did not want to click on that. Okay, I'm just going to disable all these light zones because they're killing me. So like each this room. Oh my lord! Stop selecting my triggers. Like every single shape here. So like this shape here is a big subtractive brush. So like this dining room. So Nick did all of these, and his workflow is a little different than mine. But like this dining room here probably started as one big additive cube.
Yes.
And then this is a smaller subtractive brush that cuts out from the middle of it. And then like these pillars are additive cylinders, but they are also brushes. So this is Boolean geometry where you're just adding and subtracting, versus like Pro Builder or modeling in Blender, where you're like you are permanently changing geometry. Like if you wanted to cut that window out of this wall, in this case, where this is what we would call construct. That's what CSG stands for. I think it's constructive solid geometry. Yeah. Is because it's constructive. It's kind of like working with layers in Photoshop. Instead of directly painting onto something, I can paint onto a layer, and I can move that layer around. I can edit that layer, or I can just delete it, and my base product is not changed.
The end result will likely be the same as the end result of a Pro Builder mesh, in the sense that how it's being achieved is using loop cuts and extrusions and cutting off faces and stuff.
Right.
But it means that it's non-destructive. Now, do you end up baking it basically and removing the brushes?
Well, so the brushes stay like they exist, but when you're done, there's this export to Unity Mesh, and that basically basically takes every material, so every different texture, and turns that into its own mesh. And so that's how I go through and assign like collision materials, so that when you're walking on this wooden floor, it plays wooden floor sound effects, because that floor is tagged as a wooden object. And so like the hammer editor, like Left 4 Dead, for example, if you we'll look at this screenshot. So like this big like air conditioning unit, these boxes on the wall, this air conditioner up here, the stairwell, those are all prefabs. And Cultic uses some of this too. Like I have stairs, because stairs are a nightmare to do using brushes. So like I have like this like little like wooden stair or metal stairs prefab that I use. And so that is just a mesh. And so they're aligned on a grid, so I can just snap them together super quickly whenever Unity unfreezes. But so like I have prefabs like that I can use, because there's some stuff like this. I'm not going to build this suit of armor out of brushes. That would be a mess. Like I'm not going to build like some of this stuff out of mesh or out of brushes. And so that's kind of, but then like this building here, even though it has like a high def texture with like normal mapping, it's a cube. Like you can see it's a cube. Like this helicopter pad, it's a cube. This building is a cube. And so that's where you go back. I don't know if they have like a editor view of it, but yeah, like Hammer Editor is a more capable version of real-time CSG. And so I would love to use a tool like this, and Unreal is getting one in the form of the Scythe editor, which is awesome. And I'm super jealous that they get to have that.
Golly, where is Unity?
Golly. Oh, so yeah, here's like a Left 4 Dead custom map that you can see. And so like you can see here, like this is a building, and it's like it's a cube and it's a triangle roof. And yeah, it's and this is looking at it in a very chaotic view, but
yes.
But it's the same thing. So yeah, Cultic I do use prefabs. I do have stuff, like this. That's a prefab. I made it in Blender. I just drag it and drop it here. But when it comes to building rooms and cutting out doorways and just iterating on that, all of this is brushwork. Because trying to do this, where like if we were doing this in Blender and I decided instead of this room just having a flat square corner, I'm going to add these two pillars and this diagonal, and I'm going to add this rounded platform. If I decided I didn't like any of that, and I don't have enough undo states to go backwards, or I didn't save a backup of it, I have to like delete all of these vertices and reconnect these and redo all the UV mapping. But with this constructive solid geometry with brushes, I just delete the brushes and then it's back to where it was before, which is super duper helpful. But I don't know how well that will scale to a high depth. Like, I don't know how well you could even do this with like Twisted Tower, like to where you're saying,
dude, this is the same thing. In fact, I was going to argue with you about that, actually. You mentioned earlier, you were like, I don't know how helpful this would be for a high fidelity game.
Right.
I think high fidelity games are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I think they're starting with ceilings, floors, and walls, and it's all just flat. It's either quads or cubes. And the set dressing is what makes the texture fidelity and the set dressing is what makes it look good.
Yeah.
But dude, there are so many asset packs on the Unity Asset Store and also the Unreal, whatever the Unreal Asset Store is, where the walls, ceilings, and floors are also prefabs.
Sure.
And that is a nightmare to work with. And so to everybody listening, you've got to start with a base mesh that is similar to what Jace is doing.
Well, and I think even like Elder Scrolls, I think like in like Skyrim, even, I don't know if I could find a good picture of it, but a lot of like Skyrim's dungeons, like the caves are also modular. Like they just have these like rocky tunnels and ceilings, and they kind of just like stitch them together, and that's how they make all of these instances like so quickly. Like you can look at, I think this is not from Skyrim, maybe it is, but it's like a lot of it if you break it down into assets, it's a lot of large boulders and large like just like generic ground pieces, like outdoors. Like we'll take this example, there is a terrain mesh here that is the flat outdoor terrain, but then like this cave is like this rock here is probably a prefab. This rock is a prefab. These little cliffs that stick out are prefabs, and it's all just sitting on a terrain mesh, and the textures are blended together in a way that makes it look like this is all just like one hand modeled thing.
That's right.
And so, yeah, I mean, there's just like a middle ground, because like for a lot of Twisted Tower or any game, like, cause like I said, like Left 4 Dead, which that was a 360 era game. And so it's definitely not like a retro shooter, but if you kind of stand back and look at it, a lot of the rooms, like you said about set dressing, like this room I'm standing in, it looks like a living room in an apartment. But if I like mentally delete the furniture and the light fixtures and everything, it's a square. Like the room is a cube. And then it's just between like the textures on the walls have molding, like molding on the top and bottom. And then like the floor has like garbage textures on it to make it look like it's cluttered. And then you've got furniture so like, I don't know. I would love to keep using real-time CSG, but unfortunately supposedly it doesn't work at all in Unity 6.
I would say whatever your decision is, just from experience using Pro Builder, which is destructive, it's not a Boolean based level designer. I would say use Boolean based. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't believe we made Twisted Tower without this tool. I don't know what we were thinking.
Well, it definitely has its downsides, especially because like to give an example, like this little door molding thing, right? Like this would have been a gigantic pain in the butt to build for every single doorway. And so that I was like, no, I'm just going to model it in Blender and use it as a prefab. And so like the higher fidelity your game world is, the more often you'll have to do stuff like that. And I imagine there's a certain point where it's not worth it to do CSG anymore, because like you're just like, it's like every other thing you do, you're having to build from scratch.
Well, this is I kind of disagree with you, and I don't know what the industry standard is, especially AAA. But Boolean, the whole reason Boolean is effective is because it allows for iterative level design.
Yeah, that's true.
You're never gonna get a good idea of what if your level design is perfect until, like, you're not gonna get it right the first time, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to adjust and change things. But anyway, dude, I've got to pee.
You've been holding it for 3 hours, huh?
I have. But this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Every time you come on, it's so much fun. I mean, obviously, this is the longest podcast I've done. This by far. This one's the longest one. So congratulations.
Yeah, you can't have Midwesterners on here and expect me to not talk for forever.
I know, I love it. All right, man. Well, hey, what do you want in the description? You want any links in the description?
You know what? I think we're good for now. You can, if you've got my Twitter link in there, we'll be good.
Okay. You don't want chapter 2 in there?
No. Well, we'll let people. They can play chapter 1 first, and then they'll decide if they want to play chapter 2. So especially with the warning they've gotten now that it is scarier and harder and not exactly the same experience.
Cool. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it's always fun chatting. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Bye.